Surely, if Iran is an exporter of terror, killing its own people on the edge of getting nuclear weapons, that matters more, and we should be alongside the Americans.
So I think we've got to be really nuanced in this. You know, I've served, and I always say, don't ask anyone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. And to employ our forces into harm's way, airmen, airwomen, and individuals across our armed forces, you must have a solid legal basis. Without that, we would find it very difficult to criticise any other autocratic nation for doing the same. And so I think we've made the right decision just recently. We're in a defensive posture all the way up and down the Middle East. And right now, as we're speaking, Andrew, there are pilots probably in fast air at the moment, tracking and intercepting threats that are either a direct threat to our international allies and partners or indeed British citizens who are stranded across the Middle East right now.
But this is a nuanced problem, and we are allowing our bases to be used in what we appear to regard as an illegal war at the moment. So is there not a slippery slope possibility that a missile hits one of our people or, God forbid, kills some of our people, and we are drawn into full-scale attack on Iran alongside Israel and alongside the United States?
America and Israel have struck Iran. Iran's response has been utterly irrational and deeply dangerous. They've struck 10 different countries now. Some countries not involved at all in any way, shape or form. Those targets are everywhere from hotels in Dubai all the way through to airfields and ports all the way along the Middle East. And so they have absolutely broadened out and escalated this. There are strikes in Lebanon and Israel now engaging. We've had drones land in Cyprus. And so I think we're absolutely in our right to take carefully but calculated decisions to ensure our national interests, our allies and partners in the region, and importantly, all those hundreds of thousands of British citizens who maybe listen to this programme, to try and protect them as best we can.
So far, thank God, not many of those missiles seem to have hit the targets that they were intended for. But we also know that Iran has had sleeper cells all around the West, the IRGC involvement. Are you concerned as a government about the possibility of attacks here on the UK?
So I think it's worth sort of extrapolating a little bit on that, Andrew, and you'll know this. Step back. Iran has been involved in every terrorist organisation, probably in the Middle East, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Iranian-sponsored militias in Iraq, a lethal aid into Iraq when we were fighting there, and indeed Afghanistan. And on top of that, they've supplied Russia with tens of thousands of drones that you see now landing in the Middle East. So am I a fan of the Iranian regime? Absolutely not. But it's really important we separate the two out, the Iranian people from the Iranian regime.
Absolutely. I was asking really about the threat from sleeper cells inside the UK and whether or not we are thinking of raising the threat level.
So that's down to our intelligence agencies in the Home Office. What I will say is that we've disrupted 20 Iranian terrorist threats in this country. And it's just another example of the Iranian regime that has been, I always say, the keystone of instability within the Middle East.
Given what's happened, is it not time at long last to ban the IRGC?
So those discussions will be going on in the central, number 10 government. We'll be tracking it as we move forward, and your decisions will be forthcoming.
What's your view?
Well, I'll take the government view, but to be fair, I'm not actually involved in that discussion. My primary aim has been ensuring all those British citizens and British interests are protected in the Middle East. And I'd just like to make a shout out, Armed Forces personnel doing an amazing job. They are supporting the defensive, almost line backing all the way across the Middle East. And we're working really hard to make sure they can do their job in the most effective way.
Al, one more general question, if you don't mind. We are facing huge threats, as you know, all around the place, from the north, the high north, through to what's going on in Ukraine, through to this new war. Do you think that we are increasing defence spending and reinforcing our military as fast as we need to do?
I've been really clear. We live in probably the most fractious and unstable geopolitical time in my 24 years in the military, and defence spending has gone up. It's going to continue going up over the next 10 years. That speed will be dictated at a later date.
All right, Al Carns, thank you very much indeed. Listening to that with me in the studio is the former head of the Foreign Office, Lord McDonald, Lord Simon McDonald. Simon, welcome to you. This is the nub of the argument tonight is really whether international law is being used to dither, or whether it's really important that we are absolutely clear that we have a legal case before we get involved with the Americans and the Israelis.
In some ways, I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm going to say, Andrew, because throughout my 38 years in the Foreign Office, everything was axed on international law. But right now, international law is not the central point. International law is not what's guiding the President of the United States. That's about power. And we, faced with his use of power, I think we have three choices. We can contort ourselves as though the old world continues. And I think, frankly, that is what the government is doing right now. We can decide to sit on the sidelines, or we can adapt. We can see the world as it is, and we can take a realpolitik view and accept that things are different and we need to behave in a different way.
You think that Keir Starmer has become a contortionist?
On this, yes.
And that's because, in your view, Iran is such a wicked power, has been such a threat in terms of exporting terrorism, and the possibility of it having a nuclear weapon is so close that, frankly, international law doesn't matter as much as decapitating this regime.
It is not the ultimate guide. Certainly not for the President of the United States, and he is the one calling the shots right now. As you've been laying out, Iran has a record domestically and internationally which shows that it is a persistent and continuing threat. So even a contortionist can find a way to support, but our support was strikingly slow.
Well, this contortionist has taken a very big and bold decision in the sense of you don't take on Donald Trump on a subject as important as this without thinking there may be consequences further down the line. If you were still inside the machine, would you be advising him to pick up the phone and apologize?
I mean, leaders don't often apologize to each other, but he needs to talk to the president. He needs to explain himself, and I would urge him to get with the program.
Get with the program, and that would involve actually using our bases and our fighters and whatever else we've got to join in the attacks on Iran.
Yes, but another aspect of this, Andrew, is how useful is the United Kingdom to the United States right now? The United States has mounted two technically brilliant operations this year without the United Kingdom. Is the United Kingdom still as important to their planning as we were in 2003?
So, going back to the old days, do you look at the situation today and feel that we are drifting into irrelevance as a country?
Well, we have to revalidate ourselves. The rules of the game are changing before our eyes. This president is not interested in Security Council resolutions. He is interested in action on the ground, and he has the capabilities to do it. International law without enforcement is a very fragile thing, and the United States has to date been the main enforcer.
So this is absolutely fascinating. You really think that the British government, the British establishment, has failed to recognise the changes happening in the world?
In a word, yes. I think we have to reassess. Things are fundamentally different. This is not the first example even this year, so we can't say that we've had no warning, but we seem quite slower than the Germans, Australians, for example, Canadians, to reappraise.
Lord McDonald, fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. I've rarely heard Keir Starmer, however, be so clear about anything as he was about international law today. But how is this going down across British politics? Let's talk next to LBC's deputy political editor, Aggie Chambre. Aggie, you heard a fascinating analysis there of what Keir Starmer is getting wrong. What do you think the Labour Party thinks?
Well, I think there's a real mix in the Labour Party. As, Andrew, you know, there always is. There are some Labour MPs who feel uncomfortable even with how far Britain has gone. And there are other Labour MPs who feel that, of course, Britain should have gone further and should have gone further sooner. But in that debate that we saw in the Commons today, we had Labour MP after Labour MP asking whether the lessons from the Iraq war had been learnt. And Keir Starmer saying repeatedly that, yes, Britain has learned the lessons of Iraq.
Of course, the Iraq war was very, very different. There were boots boots on the ground, and there was a plan for regime change and rebuilding democracy and all of that. And President Trump has been very clear this time, this war is not like that. It's a much more limited attempt to take out the leadership of a wicked regime.
It's really interesting you use the word plan there, because that was another word that Keir Starmer used a lot in the comments. And the way he used it in the comments, it sounded like he thought there wasn't really a thought-through plan from Donald Trump. He also said in the comments the government doesn't believe in regime change from the skies. And he said that's one of the lessons from Iraq. There is a viable, thought-through plan with an objective that can be achieved, very much implying that he didn't think the US president had that plan at the moment. And going further once again than we had seen him in those early months in criticising, or at least seeming to criticise the US president.
Aggie, for now, thank you very much. Because I just want to ask Lord McDonald one last thing about all of that, which is, what do you see happening in terms of the Iranian leadership?
Well, in the first part of this operation, it has, as President Trump has boasted, been decapitated. And all potential replacements know that that is an American capability. So whatever happens next in Iran happens with the knowledge that if this is out with the tolerances of the President of the United States, then America will come back.
So you think, in short, it's unlikely to be a worse Iran as a result, and likely to be a slightly more Western-friendly or Western-cautious Iran?
Right now, I think that is the leading possibility.
All right. Lord McDonald, Aggie Chambre, thank you both very much indeed.